Hi everyone, it's Anne from Curious Moon Design. Would you like to make a journal just like this? It's packed with beautiful pages. It lies flat so you can write and decorate the pages. It's got file folders. Join me today and follow through with each part. This is part 1. I'm going to do 4 or maybe 5 parts, and at the end I'll do a big flip through. So here we go. Okay, so once you've decided on your theme, or not a theme, I've decided on art for this particular journal, then you go and find your pages. I've got these from various books, magazines, and all I'm doing is at the moment just folding them into the size I want. So this one, for instance, is from a Understanding Paintings book, and I didn't particularly want to cut it to size, although I have taken a bit off the bottom because I was going to miss out on this part of the Andy Warhol painting. So all I've done is folded it. So I'm going to make a little pocket out of that eventually. So that's that one. Some of the pages from magazines I've had to cut various bits off to fit, and they're not quite a full double page, but that will, as long as I've got a piece for the seam, that will be fine. And then some pages I've stuck together with using several pages, and then I cut them up randomly, and they come out rather well with different, if they're not going to be the right size, you can glue pages together to make the size you want. And then some are smaller pages. So this is a little friendship book I had, so I cut that down, and that will just fit over another page like so. So the next thing to do is, when you've got all your pages that you want, I usually put 4 of these type of pages in a signature. This will be in one signature, and then I've already cut these out ready. So this one is just that way. I've got that from my Understanding Painting book, and it's got plain paper either side, but that's fine. And this is from an art journal or a magazine. So what I'm tending to do is use the same books for each signature, and just taking out different pictures from them. So that's another signature, and then this one, so you can see this one I had to stick pages together because just goes along there, the size of the page wasn't right. And again with that one. Now I haven't put them in order of how I'm going to have them in the signature. I'm just putting them together so that I know I've got my 4 pieces of paper from books or magazines. So now what I'm going to do, now I've got my 4 signature pieces, I'm going to find extra paper, things like vellum. I've got this nice piece with ink splatters. I'm going to find some ink dyed papers, some graph paper, and some tea dyed paper, and some, this is rather unusual paper that I've had plants. It's rather crinkly. I thought that would work quite go quite nicely in the art journal. So I'm going to find pieces that will go in between these pages, just so I can journal in them. I've got some tea dyed paper, things like that. So I'll go off and find some extra papers, and then I'll come back and show you how I put a signature together. Okay, so now I've got my 4 signatures, and what I've done is I've used the 4 pages that I picked earlier, and then I've filled them with other papers that will be useful in the journal, like plain papers. This is music line paper, other drawing and pictures that I thought would go in the art journal. So this is William Morris, it was on the back of a calendar, but that would be quite useful in the journal. And as you see, these are the papers that I put by, and I've just got tracing paper, writing paper, graph paper, and some painted paper, craft paper, and I've just filled it, each signature, with these different pieces of paper and some music paper there. So I've got my 4 signatures, and now I've got to decide whether I want to have, because as you fill the signature, the papers come further and further this way, and so it's a personal decision whether to cut them all to one size, rather like I have in this journal, so they're all not neatly cut but roughly the same size, apart from the smaller ones that are in there. And I rather like that look. I don't like it too uneven in this sort of journal. So what I'm going to do is make sure I'm happy with where these are placed in all of them. I put roughly the same sort of papers throughout each signature, and then when I'm happy with where they're placed, I'm going to trim the edges, and I'll just do that on my trimmer, makes it easier. And once I've done that, I'll come back. Okay, so they're not perfect, they're not exact, but I don't want them to be absolutely perfect, so I've measured them up against an A4 in half, so there are little bits sticking out, but once I put the cover on you won't see that. Okay, so I've got all the signatures together with their added papers. Now at this stage, if you want to put some sewing on some of the pages, this is the time to do it, because you can just take them apart and add some stitching, add some pockets. I like to add little folders, and what I do is if I've got a half page, like, where have we got one? Here. Then what I tend to do is I've just torn this out of a book I have, is I'll cut this out and then cut it in half, and I'll put it either side of this stitched, and then it'll be a file folder within the book. Let's see if I've got one here handy to show you. Never one when you need one. But also there's pockets. This is a magazine piece and I've just stitched that on, and what I like to do is make sure I stitch something on the other side, otherwise the stitches can look a little bit odd on their own. So I've got that to do, and belly bands. Those are 2 pieces of paper. I've stitched that on, and with one on the other side, and a pocket that side, and little pocket that side. Just trying to find my little file. Here's one. So this is a half page under here, and I've stitched up there and up there with 2 pieces of card along the bottom, and then you've got a little file in there for some added paper, and I've just a little cut out here. So that's what I'm going to do now, is add all those little bits that I want to. I've got some cardstock that will make a belly band, and that will make a pocket. So that's what takes the time, is finding some suitable papers that you think will go in your journal, and make pockets, belly bands and little files if you want to. I mean, that would be all right left anyway, just as a little note clip there, and you could just leave it like that and stitch them. But I'm just going to add a few things. So why don't you join me for part 2, where we prepare the pages and stitch them together. See you next time. Bye for now.